Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm obedient.
I don't know what to do on
That'll
Intermountain. I'm just going to figure this out later. All right, guys. Let's get ready to rock and roll. This is going to be a great show tonight. I cannot believe the guest we have on. We are so honored.
Oh, my goodness.
Right.
I love this hobby. Is this the best hobby in the world or what?
Absolutely.
All three cameras are recording, guys. Somebody give me a countdown, and let's launch into show number 97.
3, 2, 1.
So we got What's Neat this week, November 23rd, 2019. This is episode 97. We have a very special guest, Paul Lally from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And we have some beautiful new products from Athearns on display for you, as well as talking about new products from Intermountain Railway and, of course, the trolley, the neighborhood trolley.
That's right.
So let's make it a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
The What's Neat This Week video podcast is supported by enthusiastic model railroaders just like you. Additional support is provided by Athearns Trains. Check out all their new monthly announcements at athearns.com. And by Intermountain Railway Company, where the detail makes the difference. Check out their website at intermountain-railway.com. Additional support is provided by Cowcatcher Magazine, all about the community of model railroading and rail enthusiasts. Check out their website at www.cowcatchermagazine.com. Further support is provided by the NCE Corporation, the power of DCC. Visit their website at ncedcc.com. And thank you for supporting the What's Neat This Week podcast. This is the What's Neat This Week show, 97 for November 23rd, 2019, your favorite What's New in Model Railroading show that we like to produce every single week. And tonight we've got a very special guest, but let me first introduce our normal cast. I've got Mike Budde sitting right next to me here in the same spot. I'm sure he's got some more vehicles that you brought this evening. I also have Sugarfire Joshua Barton sitting next to me.
What's up, everybody?
I love your turkey. Me and James were down in your neighborhood the other day. I also have James Regier. We all love him. And in the December What's Neat video, you guys are going to have your socks knocked off by the LED install that he did in some Christmas coaches that matches up really great.
Oh, my goodness.
And on Skype tonight, I have Paul Lally.
Hi, Paul.
He is the director. He has directed over 100 episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, PBS, starring the beloved television icon, Mr. Fred Rogers. So welcome to our show. I understand you've been watching our show, Paul. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Yeah.
We are honored to have you.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here. Even virtually, I'm with you. So it's good to be here. I've watched the program. I love Ken's layout. I like everything you guys do. And frankly, it's never been done really in this depth before for a model railroader. So I think it's a terrific service you do. So I thank you for that, and I'm glad to be here. And I'll answer any questions you want about Mr. Rogers and the trolley, etc.
And I'll just say one thing, Ken, that I had my trolley on the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Facebook group, and Paul asked me, what sort of layout I had. And I said I didn't really have a layout. I had a 2x2 test loop. And he said, well, build something modular. Build something that you can build one section and then another and then another.
Right.
And that's exactly the advice that you would give anyone getting started in model railroading.
Yeah.
Build a modular layout. So that's
The biggest thing I tell everybody is don't be afraid to try something. So many people are afraid, oh my gosh, I might ruin something, and they never go on to step 2 or step 3. And that's the biggest thing that stops anybody in life from doing anything that gets us ahead, and that is fear. And just go ahead and just dive right into it. If you ruin it, you're not going to ruin it. What'll happen is it'll turn out fantastic, and you're going to be one step above where you were just before that.
Happy little accidents.
And you'll learn how to fix
are.
it. So that way next
That's
time you're
right.
not afraid to ruin it, because
There was one thing that Mr. Rogers said often on the show, and that is just when you thought you were at the end, you find out you're at the beginning of something greater and better. And Paul, I'm sure he said that to you. Tell me about what it was like to direct those 100 or so shows during the 80s.
Well, it was when I was with Fred Rogers, he was by then known as a national figure. People knew who he was. He wasn't just trying to, make his mark. People knew who he was. And he was in his, I think, early 60s. And a friend of mine said, you directed Fred when he was in his Cary Grant phase. He looked great. His hair was silver, and everybody knew who he was. So it made my life a lot easier because Fred and I, when I first worked with him, he said, I'll provide you the paints and here's the canvas, you do the painting. And that's how we worked. That we would have, and I wrote some programs as well for the neighborhood, but mostly I did what Fred wrote, was his scripts. And then I would figure out how it would work, and where we would do it, and when did X the owl go to the tree, and where Betty Aberlin talks to Daniel Pussycat. It's a lot of traffic copying work when you're a television director.
Sure.
Because you have about 25 people doing 25 different things in the studio. So you have to, it's a little, not quite like herding cats, but it's close to it because everybody's got their thing.
Now,
And that's kind of the feeling, but I knew that I was doing something important. And that really helped me emotionally and intellectually, that what we were doing was telling young children that people could love them just the way they were. And Fred did that in the movie, and he would look at an adult and do the same thing. So my rule is, and people get tired of me saying, is that people want to love and be loved.
Right.
Everything else is commentary.
Right.
So it was a thrill, and I had 10 years doing that with Fred.
Yeah.
Now, you're aware that there's a movie that just came out involving Fred Rogers. It's at the box office. It came out, on Friday.
Yeah, yesterday.
That's right, yesterday.
I had the opportunity to see that. And the movie revolved around a magazine article that was done in Esquire magazine back in 1979.
1980, or 1998, sorry.
1990.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tom
it says-
Joad, the
yes, it
writer.
does.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a 400-word article, and the author, the writer, found out that Mr. Rogers was so much more, and it turned out to be a 10,000-page or word full cover article in Esquire magazine. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
And it happened a lot. I mean, reporters would come in and do stories on Fred, but this particular when Tom Joad came in, thinking he was just going to do one more story, but Fred had a great trick, and he would do it with every one of you too. You would get together with Fred, and hi, how you doing? You would think you want to talk to him, and within about a minute, this is the truth, he would find out by asking little questions, something that you were most proud of yourself, and then he started, and you would find yourself blah blah blah. You thinking back, I got to ask some questions, but you're blah blah blah. He's going, and then what? And then what? I watched him do it a zillion times, including me. He was a master at it. He did it with Tom Joad in the movie.
Yeah.
He went right to what was bugging Joad. And,
That was really the beautiful thing about, the story that I've heard so many times, that people would talk to Fred and he would just take interest in each and every person that would talk to him. And it was a genuine interest, and people would feel like, this guy genuinely cares. And that's something that not everyone can pull off. That
It's
not
a
everyone is
valuable
true.
gift.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. And, as everybody who worked with him, we added to that overall effect. There was Nikki Tallow, who was the floor director. There were cameramen, Art and Bobby Vaughn. If you could see when Fred comes to the door and says, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood today," he's singing, that picture, as it's happening, he's coming down the steps, he's crossing over, he's opening the door, he's taking off his jacket, he's putting on his sweater. That whole move is happening on one shot. And Bobby Vaughn was camera 2 back then. And when in rehearsal, I would watch Bobby, how he moved. He had the pedestal up and pan and zoom. And it was all just like automatic, and he's moving it around. It was genius. And you never, watching the show, you never saw that. We were the invisible part of that. But people who visited the studio loved to see that. Loved to see that effect of everybody working together. I'm reminded, and this is a good example of club layouts where people bring their own skill to it. I love to do scenery. Awesome at scenery. I suck at wiring. I had this huge O-scale layout. Honest to God, got 2 wires. Whoop. plugged up to the damn thing, and that was it. And I mean, I had a blast. But you could put your nose down to that tree, and it looked real. And you can come all the way back, and there's hand carved rocks. So everybody brings their own skill.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Now, I remember you telling an awesome story about this repair, the spot repair that you did on Daniel Tiger's whisker. And
Yeah. Well, we all know hot glue, right? I use hot glue today to fix my garage door. Anyhow, hot glue. So Daniel Striped Tiger. These are little hand puppets, and they're kind of ragged. And we had I don't know what the pound filament line it is. I'm no fish, but it's like 3-pound filament line for his whiskers. So we're getting ready to do a setup, and Fred's got Daniel up like that for the scene, and Betty Aberlin's standing there, and I noticed that one of the whiskers fell off. It's like getting ready to come off. So I talked to Jan Pascal, who's a pretty person. I said, give me the hot glue gun. So I'm just gonna put a dab on it, put it in Daniel's thing. So I do the hot glue gun, and Fred has it up, and he goes, what? He said, what are you gonna do? I said, oh, Dan, listen, it's an obvious talk. I said, look, one of your whiskers came out. You would talk to these damn puppets.
right, yeah,
Right.
He said, what are you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna put a whisker in your thing. And it's gonna be okay. Oh. And he said, is it going to hurt? Well, I said, well, Daniel, it's a hand puppet. It's not gonna hurt. It's gonna be okay. And Fred says through Daniel, that's easy for you to say. Anyway,
Wow.
So the bottom line is I glue it in, but it just became a madhouse. But this was the hot glue. And that's kind of the atmosphere in that studio when we would work with, it was just kind of free flowing like that. And Fred he would do all the voices. He did 80% of the voices in Neighborhood of Make-Believe. So,
yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just one of the more memorable stories for me of sort of the behind the scenes. Now, the other thing I noticed is, of course, that neighborhood layout. Now, Ken was talking about how it panned into this hearse, and I don't remember seeing a hearse during any of the episodes, but this was the sort of thing that would happen with that layout. That Mr. Rogers would go and visit a dairy, and there would be a model of a dairy appearing somewhere on the layout, or visiting an airport, and there would be the corner of an airport or a control tower appearing. That was a very fluid layout. So tell us some about that.
Well, there was a basic layout for the movie, and you're quite right in that if we went, let's say, to the Dance Theater of Harlem in New York City, so we film on location, et cetera, and do all that, then I'd take a picture of what the building looked like. In this case, it was just like a standard, office building. Mm-hmm. So we get back to the show, and Jack Guest, who was the art director back then, would look at it. He'd get art card, and he'd make a building. It kind of looked like the same thing. So I'd have a wide shot of the building at the Dance Theater of Harlem for real. And then you'd hear Johnny. This is in the edited version. You hear the music star Johnny Costa play, and we would dissolve from the real building to the model building on the set, and the camera zooms out, reveals the full cover, full wide shot, then goes down into Fred's house. So that's the transition. And we would film the on-location stuff first before we did anything else. So that's like the process. And, it had the standard plastic fill kits.
Right.
Yeah, I saw those Model Power, Plasticville, Bachman.
Yeah.
I understand that Lee Riley at Bachman helped a little bit with something on that layout, because I've got a picture I'm going to show right now of a pair of sneakers that Bachman sent me a picture of this week that Mr. Rogers had signed. And they also gave him a small model, and every one of them had a number underneath it. This was like number 300 of a HO scale trolley.
Oh my gosh, that's true. And you have that. Well, that's wonderful. That would be worth looking at.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one story. One time, Fred, we arrived on location at a dairy we were in Pennsylvania somewhere, and we got there. We flew out there, and he forgot his sneakers. Honest to God, that's like forgetting.
Maybe that's how he got them.
Right. His sweater.
So we got on the phone, talked to FedEx, and they were in Pittsburgh. And so the next morning, it's early. We're out there. The cows are there. We're waiting in the field.
Right.
And in comes this FedEx truck. Stop. The guy jumps out, running up with the box. It's like a shoebox. Say, Mr. Rogers, it's your sneakers. It's your sneakers.
That's great.
For sure. And that's when
Wow.
I knew. I said, man, we are plugged into something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Hit the big time.
Definitely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember Mr. Rogers did this cross show with a children's show from Moscow, from Soviet Union, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers leading the way to thawing the Cold War. Like
Yeah.
that was
yeah,
pretty
we were
amazing.
there. I directed that. We went over there. I was the director for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That whole travel and to be in a television studio in the Soviet Union back then. This is in
Wow.
the mid '80s. It was quite an experience, and the cameras looked a little bit different. It was just astonishing that in Russia at the time, Moscow, and it was still the Soviet Union, but it's getting ready to go. Gorbachev was there, but they had a primetime show at night called Good Night Little Ones. So Fred appears there with puppets, and then 2 months later, Tatiana, the woman who hosts it, came to America. So we did a little exchange thing, and it was a terrific experience. And it impressed me always with Fred looking for the angle. Fred was trying to look at a way to show, and the theme, let me back up slightly, was about nighttime. That's all. So a week's worth of shows about nighttime. So when a child goes to sleep and takes a nap in the middle of the day, they don't know if they're going to wake up again in the same place. So this is preschool thoughts.
It's true.
that
Right,
children have. And so we did a whole theme about nighttime, including being in the Soviet Union at nighttime. And so these programs were very strongly versed in early childhood development.
Right.
So it wasn't the stuff we made up. I mean, this stuff is.
Right.
I wrote scripts for this program, and believe me, they were rooted in good, strong, informational stuff for children that adults like too, mind you. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
So there it is. But
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
it's quite an experience for me. And I went on Soviet trains going from Helsinki overnight. Fred and I were in the same compartment. Oh my God, Russian trains. Let me tell you guys, it was something. Just back then.
Man.
They had, this was long stories, but the Russian railroads, or Soviet railroads, were totally unexpected experience with the guards on the train, and not military guards, but mostly everybody worked at the time in the Soviet Union. Everybody had a job, so there were lots of attendants on the train and stuff,
Sure.
mostly just looking at you. That was quite an experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome. Let's
Now-
take a time out to pay a couple of quick bills here. On the table tonight, and I've got to do this, guys. Mike, Budde, Athearns sent you a Frisco GP50.
Boy, that
Nice.
is nice.
That's a
And that
beautiful
comes
locomotive.
with Tsunami 2 sound, and it's got LED lights in it. They also sent me something that I kind of really wanted, and that was these F7s in the silver and blue freight scheme for Santa Fe. Back in 1972, this is when they were trying to find their way on different paint schemes on the F units. You'll remember
I
they
like
did them
those.
with the yellow front and silver. They obviously had the
Right.
war bonnet with the red and silver, and they eventually had the blue and yellow freight schemes. But I always love this blue bonnet, as I call it, with the blue front and the silver. These things come with the ones I have on the table right now don't have sound in them, so I'm going to put some Digitrax decoders in them. But they do have versions that are available on their website with sound in them. And the last thing I've got on here, I talked about the Frisco. I've got 2 Union Pacific GP50s. These are also brand new in their inventory. Check their website at athearntrains.com. These come with Tsunami 2 sound decoders and LED lights, guys, and they're really bright. For Intermountain tonight, I was supposed to be talking about the GP10 locomotives that have not arrived yet, but I did have one of their GP10s in the past, and that was this Illinois Central locomotive.
Right,
These
those
things are
Paducah units.
beautiful.
Yeah.
They've got the gyro lights on the top, the headlights on the bottom, and they also have Loke sound. ESC Loke sound comes with this unit. This was the Illinois Central. They currently have in stock the Mid-South Railroad, the Arkansas-Oklahoma Railroad, Farm Rail, Twin Cities and Western, and Paducah and Louisville Railroad. Plus, also, if you check their website, they have probably a half a dozen other locomotives that are about to come out when they get their manufacturing and everything set up on that. And as soon as I get the models from Intermountain, we will cover them again on the next show, because I want to shoot them outside and run them on the layout and share these beautiful GP10 locomotives that they've come out with.
Absolutely.
But check them out, guys. It's really cool.
Yep.
One last thing I wanted to talk about was Michael Wood. We talked about him last week as being the gentleman that is good with working with metal. He's got a plasma cutter, and he came out with this NCE throttle holder for the large throttle that we all like to use. Well, this week he sent me another throttle holder that is the smaller one that fits the smaller NCE throttle. I know, check it out, Paul. It works. It's great. You can find these on his eBay site by typing in NCE throttle holder. Guys, it's getting close to Christmas. If there's any way to make your model railroader friend happy, get him the Pro Cab or the Power Cab from NCE.
That's right.
It's one of the best, and it's one of the best systems on the market. It works on our layout all the time, no problems. So thank you very much, Paul, and all the guys that run NCE. I talked to Ed on the phone a lot. My father said, Ed, I need to have you on the show because you know so much about DCC. It's amazing. So, guys, thank you very much, all of you, for sponsoring what we do in the hobby, trying to create just a simple show that lets you know what's on the market every single week. Now, I want to go out to Paul Lally again and ask you, Paul, from what I understand, you are an avid model railroader. I understand you like O-scale.
Yes, I do, emphatically so. 2-rail O-scale. I had a pretty big... I've had 3 HO scale layouts over my lifetime, and I finally just said, I just liked O scale and I like 2-rail, which it makes you at a more and more narrow market.
Absolutely.
But
Right, yeah.
there's a certain mass to it that appeals to me. So I figured out a way to do a layout on my basement that allowed really tighter radius curves because I can't run big trains on it. And I learned enough over the years of modeling that, I would hide these little cranky, phony-looking tight curves. You don't see them because I have, seam blocks and stuff. And it looks pretty. It was like my crowning achievement to work with O-scale because it just, financially it costs about the same because things are more expensive, but you have very less. And everything had to be like 40-foot. Box cars. Yeah. And I had SW1 and a little 44 tonner. Those are the 2 things. That was it. That's the total motive power.
Well, I understand you also had a certain M1000 on that layout.
Fred's, yeah. It normally rests up in my office. Fred has when I left Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, he loved trains, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he gifted me his Lionel M1000. Is it M1000, right?
Yes,
that's and it's painted which never had it, was the Pennsylvania Railroad. Don't ask me why, but Lionel had one year they did it. He had it when he was a little boy. So I said, you can give it to me, Fred. I'm going to guard it until you want it back because it's like a big deal.
Yeah.
So I was honored to have my layout featured in O-scale railroading and also in Model Railroad Craftsman.
Yeah.
And so I took the it's a Lionel thing, so I put it on the 2-rail, so it looks like it's cruising along. It's a 3-rail. It wouldn't really run on my layout.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It looks so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did my heart proud, to put that train down on my layout, and it looks good. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of O-scale, and I'm glad that there's, enough that Atlas is very engaged in it still, and that makes a difference.
Now, if you ever come down to St. Louis, you need to check out the Webster Groves Model Railroad Club. They have in the former Webster Groves Frisco station, they have that entire thing set up with a giant 2-rail O-scale layout.
Mm-hmm.
Amen, brother. I love it.
You're welcome in St. Louis anytime.
Yeah.
We'll put you up in the spare bedroom upstairs. We can watch the river flow by, and boy, would we have fun for the weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I love where you do your production photos and stuff out on the lawn. I keep thinking, how's he doing all that? Because I'm a television director, so I'm very visually driven. Trying to sort out stuff, and you can get away with all sorts of visual tricks and stuff. And I really admire your ability to make stuff look so, and I really mean this, appealing. You capture your photographs really capture the fascination and the excitement of modeling. When we can make something big little and make it look real, it's just it's very satisfying, and you do that quite well. And Athearns, whoever, you do a lot of shooting for them, right?
I love
they're
Athearns.
lucky to have you, for that, because you pull that off, and I salute you as a television director who's doing this a long time, and
Wow.
it's great. So you have to say now. I'll give you a tip. You have to say thank you. Okay.
Thank
you.
I use an analogy whenever I try to sell a manufacturer on using me for their photography work. My analogy is if you go through the frozen food department at any one grocery store, you can look at all the beautiful boxes of the cooked meals on the outside of the box. But when you open up the box and you dump it on the kitchen table, it's a bunch of blocks of ice.
Amen.
Yeah, that's
I'll
true.
bring an amen up there.
So what I try to do is I try to create a serving suggestion for the models, whereas
good.
it
That's
adds
good.
credibility to, it makes you want to buy it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and and we all were young enough, and I can still remember, and I'm older than all you guys, that they used to have. Remember, you would send away money on cereal box tops and get.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
These frogmen, or they had a submarine that would go up and down. Okay?
Yeah.
And it had baking soda. Okay, so it looked like this, giant undersea. The movie, the ad is so awesome. When you get it, it's a little
Plastic.
submarine.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes up and down into burps because it's baking powder, then up and down and burps, and that was it. And your little arms are freezing in the bathtub. It ain't what you saw on television. But that's the other end of it.
That's
But
right.
you're right. I think it's a good analogy to do a serving suggestion. I think it's very smart.
Wow. Thank you so much for your compliments. Mike, buddy, did you bring something? It looks like you've got another phone vehicle on the table tonight.
Yeah. First, I had another question I wanted to ask Paul. How did the trolley come about? And I read somewhere you got together with a fellow model railroader, Tom Vitolo.
Yeah, Tom Vitolo. Yeah.
And you weren't sure that
Yeah.
Fred was going to like it. You kind of did it on the sly, and because don't fix what's not broken, and so.
Yeah, and it was a secret. I mean, I said, I talked with Tom, and I said, and Tom was the guy who hand lettered the little neighborhood trolley. He did that little part on the top. But I said, I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try this. And I'll tell you, this is a real inside thing. Okay, this is like so geeky, I can't stand it. All right? The trolley you see in the movie, when you just saw this, Ken, the trolley's going across on rails and stuff. And in my article, I said I used a router because we all know with street, rails got to be in the pavement.
Right.
It's sticking up with the car. I've seen some pictures. I almost don't want to say this, but the people who built that model were very proud, and they said, "You did a great job." Then I'm saying, "Wait a minute." They mounted the rails above, okay? So they're not buried in the pavement. So all geeks arise,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no.
But, I mean, that's the whole thing that I remember routing it and trying to keep, I had a little HO gauge, so I made sure that, because I had to put rails in it, and I used hot glue to stick those little rails down in the pavement. And I was doing it. It was like I was defacing Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Once I started doing that, I was committed. So,
Right.
Oh my God, I'm cutting slots in Mr. Rogers' street. Jesus, I hope it works.
Right.
So it was scary.
Well,
And but you did try, James, it was a motorized version once. And
Right.
that was it. Like one of your kids was running it.
Right.
I said, well, that idea doesn't work.
right.
So did you
We
pull
got the
it with
fish
a
line,
string,
so-
or how did you make the trolley move? I do recall in the movie that's at the box office right now, the router groove was in the layout, and it looked like they did a lot of scenes, moving cars across the Brooklyn Bridge and a lot of different things in the movie.
Well, that-
but you could tell it was being pulled by a string. Is that how you did it?
I did, with the fish line. Yeah,
Fish
it's
line.
a continuous loop. Trolleys here, and it's a piece of fish line
Cool.
goes underneath the layout, comes around, and attaches here. Then you put the stick underneath the layout and attach it to this, and if you pull it, it goes like that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back and forth, and you have to do it. The trick was, as the camera zooms into Fred's house, you have to. The trolley's got to just as the trolley goes by, it goes into Fred's house. I mean, there was an art to it.
Right.
Yes.
You had to judge, because Art Vogel was camera one. He's shooting the wide shot, and as he zooms in, you have to figure out just right and into Fred's house, and then we dissolve, and it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So
Oh,
that's
man.
how.
Yeah.
I just want to sing
It's
that
all
song.
live.
It
Yeah.
gives me
Yeah.
chills.
Yeah.
Music
It's just,
again.
I watched that, at least 10 years through 4 kids.
Oh, yeah.
And The model railroader in me always tried to identify the buildings in the town, and and then I'd try and remember where the ones were from the last episode that you zoomed in and see if they were still in the same place.
Right for that.
But,
well, and the trees. I remember when I got in there, I thought, oh my God, it's lichen, or what? I never say it right, lichen, but it was kind of beat up. So I put in, ground foam.
Right.
And I did all
Right.
I jacked it up quite a bit, and I'm a big fan of. I don't think they did this in the movie. I have to look close. But I really sealed, the foundations are in a building, you got to cover that little stupid
gap.
Yeah.
On that, and I'm not too sure they thought about that. But again, this is like not suitable for work.
Right.
But
Right.
I'll look when I see the movie, Ken. I haven't seen it close enough, but I would never tell these people this because they recreated that from zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot.
So they actually they recreated the entire studio. That was the WQED Public Television Station studio in Pittsburgh. So that was a recreation that we saw in the movie.
The set was they actually used that same studio for the filming.
Oh, excellent!
okay.
Yeah.
It was cool.
The space, the literal space.
And Tom
the
Hanks,
former lighting director Frank Wernitzky did the lighting plot for it. Frank is, I've known Frank forever. So the same studio space, and then they had to build everything from the ground up. So they did a wonderful job of that.
Tom
It was
Hanks
terrific.
was fantastic. He really played Fred, just nailed all the different demeanors. It was perfect.
Yeah, he inhabited this with Joanne Rogers, Fred's wife. I'm friends with Joanne. She just said that Tom Hanks inhabited Fred. Inhabited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great compliment. And the key thing was that Hanks said for him that it's not that Fred talked slow, it was Fred's cadence. And the cadence is just the rhythm of how he talked. So it's that. And you may have noticed that in the movie that Hanks does that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He matches the cadence. And it's wild. And you're quite right. It's not about Mr. Rogers.
Right.
He might get Best Supporting Actor in this movie because it's all about that reporter. And that's why I think the movie works. And, and that adults can watch it.
Right.
And that's going to be successful. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I don't want this show to end. This is a really good one tonight. But this is, one of those things where we do have to close this one out. Mike, do you want to talk about your truck real
We
quick
can wait
before we
till
close it
next
out?
week.
Okay, what's neat this week for December is going to come out as you guys are seeing this video now, because this is the last show that we're doing in November right now, because next week I've got to get January's What's Neat completed, which I've been working on all week, and it's got some great how-tos in it on layout construction.
Yeah.
Kevin Rubel opens up the December 2019 What's Neat video over at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine with that part where he says, "What's Neat starts right now." Daniel Coombs, our wonderful Daniel, the youth in the hobby, shares with us his brand new modular layout that he is building. James Regier and myself show you how to do outdoor photography at nighttime out here on the bluff, utilizing all the water dioramas we have and all the lights in Columbia and your LEDs on your trains. It's a great segment with some of the beautiful bridge nighttime photography that we do. I'm
Yeah, so
showing you
much
one
fun.
picture right now that was so
I like
outstanding.
that. I saw that. I saw some of that, James. That's great stuff. I'm
Thanks.
interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, you're awesome. You can say
Right.
anything you want.
Right.
That's right.
You are the director, the real director in the room. And then the last thing we have is James Regier did an LED install into his Christmas coaches where he actually animated and made the bell ring back and forth with a lot of LEDs. He shows the circuitry. It's a very comprehensive video. It should have been an hour long, but I gave him time constraints of about 22 minutes, something like that. But hats off to you, James. People are going to respect your work. It's really, really good. And that's
It
the
is.
December
I
lineup.
used every second of it.
And
That is the
James,
lineup.
the light you have on trolley 2 is I envy that very much because I never could figure that out on our trolley.
Yeah.
So your
Although-
little light is so. I love it. I love that little thing going by. So.
Yeah, these are little tiny 0402 LED surface mount LEDs, and if they I put it up next to an HO scale character, and it's actually about the size of the palm of his hand. So you're actually dealing with light bulbs that are just about scale light bulbs
Man.
or LEDs that are just about
Yeah.
scale light bulb
Wow.
size.
Wow.
Really.
Yeah. So it's
You guys are talented. You are like miles ahead of me, and all of you. Fred would love you to have him in the studio, work on the show, because you guys understand the collaborative spirit of a great hobby. And television is nothing but a collaboration of like-minded people wanting to do one thing. So I'm honored to be your guest tonight, and and I'm glad that I could offer you some stories.
We're very honored to have you on the
No
show,
kidding.
Paul.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much
it was
for
great.
doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Guys, I don't know how else to make it any better than this. This is one of the best interviews that we've ever had, and they're always good. So let's do this, guys. Show number 97. Let's close this one out. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you
Yeah.
much,
Thanks
very
again,
much,
Paul.
James Regier, for setting this up.
Absolutely.
Joshua Barton, I think we should go to Sugar Fire tonight. And Mike, you rock. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody
That
out there.
sounds good.
This is the best hobby in the world. This is your show put on by model railroaders, us just like you. We're all in one big happy family together, and I love it that way. So rock and roll, guys. Let's go run some trains.
All right.
All right.
I know it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Oh my God! Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Paul.
Yeah,
this is
very
awesome.
much.
You don't have to go anywhere, but I do have to stop all three cameras. I got to stop sound. I got to stop screen capture.
Do all that. Yeah, man, you were a one-man band. Fred would
Right.
admire you for that.